Hi loves, I hope July treated you well. Let me know in the comments down below the one word that summed up your July. So today I'll be walking you through the month of August, touching on the astrology and my own intuitive insights for this month, as well as your personal zodiac sign, be it your sun, your moon, your rising sign. August, by most standards of the year so far, it does feel pretty good energetically. There is a shift out of some old energy with Mercury changing signs, Venus shifting signs this month. But I definitely don't want to allude that it's all unicorns and butterflies, because Mars is getting to work. And what I mean by that is that there is this feeling of him prepping for something as he climbs up Aries, and he's going to begin to confront Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto, which is all over in that Capricorn space. So it definitely feels to me like there is definitely some tension building, but I feel like that will probably mainly play out, in September, because that is when Mars will go retrograde and come back through all of this stuff. So it just feels like things are prepping for something to come in the next few months ahead. I don't want to say it's like the calm before the storm, because it doesn't feel like that sort of turbulence and that sort of energy. It feels like something is being prepped, right? We have the sun in Leo. Sun loves to be in Leo. We have Mars in Aries. Mars loves to be in Aries. You have Saturn in Capricorn again. Okay, Saturn likes to be in the sign of Capricorn. So we have this kind of touching to the root and to the base of the general kind of vibes, the general kind of like energy of these natural, planets are in their natural habitats. But it does bring out this kind of archetypal type of like, I don't know how to explain it, but like the sun in Leo, it's providing support to Mars this month. Okay, this is a good aspect, it's positive. Okay, but when we look at it from, I guess, if we look at it from, like I was saying, archetypes, okay, Sun is the king, Mars is the, the army, the navy, the military, right? And looking at Saturn, Saturn, with Saturn getting involved here, Saturn is the common person, it's society, it's the standard. And obviously these energies, fire looking at the earth, it's like it's burning, right? It's a kind of burning nature. So to me, looking at the astrology, it almost looks like Mars is being given a green light on something that the leader, Leo, is giving him. Okay, so there will be this pushback, okay, because obviously we have a lot of that energy still, combining together down in Capricorn, or I should say up in Capricorn. But it's almost like Mars is prepared for this, but like it's prepping for something more. And it definitely feels to me like there will be progression, there will be movement this month for sure. This is not by any means the worst month of 2020. It's actually one of the better months of 2020. So for sure, obviously Sun in Leo, we're all going to kind of be lifted up. Our spirits are going to lift a little bit more during the course of this month. But I just want you all to be aware that what feels like a win initially might not be as much so as the months progress, September into November. It just feels to me like there's a plan that is being put into motion, and it's like Mars is climbing into position, right? The armies are being put into position for something. I don't feel like I'm talking about literal war, even though we start the month in or under the lunar mansion of Purvarashara, but we'll get to that in a second. So the full moon is going to happen on August 3rd, and it's going to be very kind of, what's the right word here? Revelationary, is that even a word? It's full of surprises, and these can be both good and bad. Okay, I mean, there is no such thing as like you know, everything is a balance of both things. So it all depends on your personal perspective, but it will take your attention to something that you haven't been focusing on, because the image I see in my head is like a jack in the box. It's like you're focused on something and then something kind of jumps out. It's that kind of adrenaline inducing, putting you into action type of a vibe. It's like, I'm focused on this is where my energy is, this is where my attention is being drawn towards, right? We're being sucked into some sort of narrative, but whatever you've been sure of, that surety, that certainty of something, it will kind of shift. And yeah, like the impression that I get with this jack in the box is like it's a kind of jump scare, you know, in a movie where something jumps out. It's like, oh, you know, it's not getting to the worst part. It's kind of that first little kind of, yeah, like it just kind of jumps out at you, but then, you know, it goes back to normal, and then the stuff kind of happens. It kind of feels a little bit like that. So yeah, it's like a jump scare in a movie that gets you literally moving. It gets the character taking action upon something, you know. It's kind of like, oh, I feel like something is off, and then bam, it's just a jump scare. Phew, I feel safe now, and then kaboom, right? And the kaboom won't come until, you know, a few months, but it's kind of like this action inducing and rebellion type of vibes that I get on First Insights. Now, I will be diving into the full moon specifically, as I do with both new moons and full moons, but I'll post that in the next few days. Now, the main message that came through for the month of August is a need to listen and to educate yourself instead of believing what others are feeding you, right? Mercury is moving into Leo on the 4th of August, and that will enable you to get out of the heaviness of Cancer. Even though we will have Venus moving into the sign of Cancer, it's different. Mercury is the mind. It's the way in which our attention and what's drawing our attention, you know. So in Cancer it can be pretty heavy, but in Leo it's definitely more empowered, it's definitely more self-initiating, and it enables you to think for yourself as opposed to being consumed by, you know, deep emotions. It's not that Leo is not emotional or doesn't have a big heart, but there is this, Leo is a king, right? He's the authority. And so if we think about the archetype of Leo, you know, a king has many advisors, but he is the one that ultimately makes the decision, right? He is, and he only ever really, like a king, you know, he's gonna truly only listen to himself at the end of the day to serve what's best for him and his kingdom, you know, depending on the king. But, you know, it's listening to yourself, the sun, the self, right? So Mercury moving into the sign of Leo, building up and working towards his connection with the sun, is like a reset, okay? Because when you have a planet that's really close to the sun, it almost like resets it. It's kind of like a, I want to say like it's a new moon for the planet. It begins again, right? It's a recharge, a reflect, and like a clearing out, coming up with some form of clarity, which is important before, you know, Mercury does then later move into the sign of Virgo, where he will be having some form of an aspect with Neptune, which can cloud everyone's vision, where everything gets a little bit confusing because of the Neptune vibes, right? It's not about knowing, it's about feeling. It's about trusting in your own intuition. But obviously when Mercury's in Virgo, he's all facts, figures, receipts, give me the data. That's what's real, right? Even though something fundamentally will feel off, right? So I guess when we're talking about this Leo vibe, right, for the first few weeks of the month of August, with Mercury also coming into the sign of Leo, it's really asking you to question the narrative, to do your own research, and then check the resources, check those sources that this research thing that you've come across has seen. Because obviously if you're, let's say you're researching vaccines, obviously the person who wants to sell you the vaccine or whatever it may be is going to be pro-vaccine, but you also need to kind of challenge your own beliefs here in a bit of a way so that you can have both options laid out in front of you, so you can see both sides, and then you yourself ultimately have to make the decision, right? And I would say checking your sources will kind of amp up a lot more from the 19th of August, when Mercury does eventually, you know, shift into the sign of Virgo. But like I said, in Virgo, there's a little bit of a fog, a little bit of a mist, with Neptune, you know, casting his cloud of, is this really what is happening? You know, is this really? And so there can be some unclear information that comes up around that time, perhaps something that is misleading, perhaps even withheld information, so you don't have the complete story, the complete facts of something. Now, I also feel as well like I do sense movement in August, or what can bring, let's say, progression. After all, we do start the month under the lunar mansion of Purvarashada, which is the invincible one. So August has you building your fight, you know, building your size, building your debate, building your point. You know, it's that building your fight to reach and overcome the opposition that is potentially in your way. So it's kind of like, if you imagine, like, I don't know what they call it, I'm sure it has a real name, but where, you know, it's like the pathway of two rivers where they join and then they push and they continue as one. That is the image that I'm seeing, which can also be correlated to Purvarashada. So yeah, like that is literally what I'm seeing in my head, as crazy and as weird as that may sound. But it's just, I guess, reminding everybody that being divided, you can't overcome the oppressors, but together you can accomplish and create everlasting change. Okay, so with that said, if you would like me to read for you, please do, you know, check out my services. But now we're going to move on to you know, the personal insights that I get for each of the zodiac signs. Hi Libras, suns, moons and rising signs. So August brings attention towards an organization, a community, a group that you maybe have associated with in the past or have been associated with in the past, whether it is present tense or past tense. There is a highlighted theme around friendships, organizations, communities, groups, networks, that type of a thing. And it does give me somewhat of exposure type of vibes, you know, exposing something. Being as there is a need this month for authentic self-expression, and anything but that can create this kind of void, this kind of confusion surrounding you. And I feel like for many Libra folks, you know, that the month of August can be a little bit cutting and separating, you know, wanting to separate yourself from a particular group or an umbrella term, you know, kind of needing to be very clear about who you are, where, like where or what you want to be known as, kind of like it's almost like yourself, putting yourself in your own box this month. You know, you kind of don't want to be seen as this thing, but you want to create your own kind of group, your own kind of box, your own kind of thing, to be like, this is what I am, that is not what I am. It's kind of like creating some sort of distance within a group or within a community over the course of August. So yeah, I mean, separate to that, I feel like there's a lot that you might feel called to research and look up this month. You know, being informed and being well educated on a subject matter will only provide you with new openings. So, you know, as much as you can research, as much as you can look up and learn something new, I feel like that's going to open the door to a new chapter for you. And this isn't a time for you winging it. So if you do get opportunities to, you know, connect with certain groups, or, you know, groups that are different from the one that you had associated with, don't just go into that thinking that you know everything about it. Make sure that you are well informed, make sure that, you know, you're educated on that, because as much as like you want to distance yourself from something, it's important that when you're going into something new, that you're clear about what that something new is. And, you know, I feel like you might unexpectedly be finding out new things anyway in the month of August, and those findings will aid you on some level. It will provide some form or some sort of solution to what you want to change or what you want to shift out and away from in August. Now, you may seek to kind of branch out from whatever group you have been partaking within, and you could very well gain new opportunities to collaborate with new people. Now, these people might actually be in the classification or the group that you want to move away from, or they can just be totally new that can help elevate you in some manner. So, perhaps an old project has, suddenly gained a little bit of traction, or something that you did in the past can now resurface, and it will provide you with the recognition that you deserve, that maybe you didn't get back then. But there's this conflicting kind of energy, because I do see that you're cutting ties to the old you, the old box that you've been placed in, and wanting to kind of be put into a new category almost. And so there is this kind of, are you gonna continue down this path? Are you gonna take on this recognition even though it's not, where you want to be? Like, it's not really what you're about anymore. And I do feel like you will be gaining that recognition, though. That recognition is coming in some form, and perhaps even stumbling upon something online that you had no idea about, that puts you or points you in a very positive light. And it kind of makes you question, where do I belong? Like, what group am I identifying with? What, community do I want to be a part of? So my advice for this month for you, Libra, is just to be clear with who you are and how you want to be seen this month. There needs to be no room for interpretation. So if you're breaking away from an old, identification, then make it a clean break. Don't go back and forth. Be assertive and be very, very clear. You have a lot of power this month. I definitely feel that, like, you have a lot of power this month to go for something, to go do it, to open that door, to create the you that you want to, but also to put a plan into action and see it through. There is a need to be very clear, very sharp, very distinct with where you're going and how you want to be seen. It's kind of like you define you this month, but you need to, there's no room for mystery, right? You have to be very specific and very clear about the yes, I'm this, no, I'm not that, kind of creating that sense of strong, firm boundaries. So this is what I get for you, Libra. Hopefully you can relate. Let me know how things get on for you in the month of August in the comments down below, and I will see you in another video. Thank you so much. Bye.